Welcome to the Your Illini Nation pregame show. Bret Beherns here alongside Derek Piper live at State Farm Center as number 14 Illinois gets ready to take on number 21 Ohio State at the top of the hour. Derek, here we are. I don't think many people thought maybe the Illini would be this inconsistent on January 16th, but what team are we going to see today? I think that's the first question I asked you when I saw you this morning.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see here in about an hour or so, but big opportunity here today. Got to bounce back after that Maryland loss, a really disappointing defeat, one that Illinois obviously felt like that they should have been able to take care of. And you look at KenPom, you look at net rankings, Ohio State 21 in the AP poll. This is the highest ranked team they've played as far as KenPom and net rankings since Baylor. So a good test today. We know some of the familiar faces, E.J. Liddell in particular, two-time Illinois Mr. Basketball, but I expect Illinois coming off a week off, having that Nebraska postponement to be pretty fired up for this one. I think it's a statement game, national televised on Fox here. You just hope maybe early on, a morning game, you're not sleepwalking through the first opening minutes. But Ohio State, very physical team, talented team, and you got to bring it today.
We've seen this team start out well in some games. We've seen more often than not this Illinois team not start off well in games. We've seen this team finish games. We've seen this team struggle out of halftime. It's kind of been all over the map, and I understand that's frustrating for Illini Nation and the fans and just wondering what team is going to show up. I think we all have seen the potential of what this team is capable of. Even Brad has mentioned that, but you asked him yesterday, how do you get to that consistent level of play when there are no fans here, when the crowd noise is distracting and different and difficult and weird, and I hate the crowd noise, but that's fine. It is what it is. Nobody cares about that. So, how does he find this level of consistency with his club? And maybe it is a morning. I don't know. They've been practicing in the mornings for a long time under Brad. So, where does that lie in terms of what this team is capable of, and how do they find it?
It's a great question. You got to be able to flip the switch from the very beginning, and it's a team that you almost wonder at times if, obviously they know how good they are when they play at their peak, like that second half against Northwestern. They're really tough. They're really tough to beat, but is it a matter of knowing how good they are? They maybe relax a little bit and not play a full 40 minutes. So that's really what they're searching for, that full 40-minute effort and being able to avoid the slow starts, obviously. But, yeah, we'll see. We'll see if this team can start to figure that out, and it's part of a growth process throughout the season. And it's also about having some answers when a team maybe tries to take away Kofi like late in that game against Maryland, and just being able to punch back and fight. But for Brad, after the Maryland game, to say it was a game where he got out-toughed and out-efforted, that really shouldn't happen. And yeah, this team needs to be a little bit more consistent and start to show that what they can ultimately be.
We've heard Brad say that a couple of times this year, that they've just kind of been out-toughed, out-efforted. That's a concern for a team as experienced as this one is. When you look at it overall, I wouldn't say they're really that old. They're just experienced. A lot of guys playing minutes early on in their careers. All right, we're going to break it all down here coming up in the next 25 minutes or so on the Your Illini Nation pregame show. We'll talk about Zed Key and Andre Carbello, the two former Lehigh teammates that are going to face up against each other today. We'll talk about Andre Carbello as well as a whole. When he takes that many shots, I'm not sure this team is going to be as effective as it could be. We'll talk about the Maryland recap. But I want to start with the schedule, Derek, because Illinois has now had 6 days off in between games here. It was last Sunday that they lost to Maryland here at the State Farm Center. 63 points for the Illini. I didn't feel like it was enough. I don't feel like this team is set up necessarily to win games when they only score 63 points. As you've had time to kind of look at the film again and reflect on that, we talked to Brad yesterday. What's your biggest reflection, so to speak, about what that game meant and how they learned from that?
There are just too many mistakes, whether it be early in the first half. There are just some scouting report issues where Dante Scott's a 53% three-point shooter and DeMonte sags off him on the first defensive possession, gives up a three, goes under a screen, another three. And then late in the game, it was just missed opportunities where you had time after time, or Maryland was on a drought there. I think they made one field goal in a span of 8 minutes, and you really just couldn't pull away in that game.
Yeah.
And Kofi was dominant, especially in the first half. Just couldn't get him the ball enough in that second half. And I know that he didn't necessarily handle the double and triple team all that well. Had one pass where he tries to kick it back out to Adler, throws it out of bounds. Illinois has to do a better job of being able to execute out of that, but also, even if you know the double team is going to come, you got to be able to feed the big man inside and play off of that, where you're automatically at an advantage on the perimeter when the opponent is sending that kind of attention inside. So being able to have an answer for that, I'm sure they practice responding to those situations quite a bit throughout the week. And yeah, really just being able to, when you have a big guy that's averaging 22 and 11 in Big Ten play, 73% from the field, you got to feed him. You got to feed him and make the opponent be able to stop him. Because you look at Ohio State, their tallest dude in their rotation is 6'8", so they're going to have a tough time with him. I know that they're going to send a lot of attention, but it's about having some of those counters or just being able to answer what they're going to throw at you. And I think that that's one thing that they didn't do well late against Maryland. They need to be able to do that today.
I mean, is it really just as simple as coaching? Like, Brad needs to tell them, pass the ball to Kofi. How does he only take 2 shots in the second half? I mean, that's mind-boggling to me with as well of a first half that he played.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I know that late in games you like having the ball in Io's hands, and he took over there for a stretch in the second half where he gets 9 in a row for you. And there's no doubt that in those moments you're fine with him taking some of those shots. But between him and Carbello, made some mistakes on the stretch, took some ill-advised ones. And yeah, there's no doubt that you got to put an emphasis on getting the ball to Kofi, and I think you got to have some answers where if they're going to bring a double team, can you isolate him on one side of the floor where the double teams all of a sudden, that's going to take a long time to get there? Can you screen for Kofi to get him open? Yeah. Just having some different answers and running some plays maybe that answers what the opponent is doing, and I think that was lacking against Maryland. I know Brad took a lot of onus as far as owning that loss and some things that maybe he didn't do or could have done better, and we'll see if he has more answers today. Yeah,
get the big man the ball, let him eat, essentially. We'll see what happens. But Illinois had plenty of time to work those things out after Wednesday's game at Nebraska was postponed due to some COVID-positive cases with the Huskers program. And I don't know, maybe it was a good thing. We've seen Illinois have this similar week off earlier this year. It's going to backload the schedule, certainly, with this game, and then they have another potential game. Remember that UT Morton game in early December was postponed or canceled, which allowed them to schedule one more game. We'll see if they do that. Brad had mentioned earlier on this year that it could potentially be a Big Ten opponent. Hint, hint, Iowa, right? We'll see, though. But here's Brad Underwood talking yesterday just about this time off, the schedule, and maybe how it's helped him.
Well, I think anytime you're in the middle to end of January and you can get a day off of recovery, and it's not just the physical, it's the mental as much as anything. You those moments. We all went in this as Big Ten coaches with the idea that there were going to be cancellations. Games are going to be moved. Games are going to be slotted in where they haven't been slotted in previously. You could end up with 2 or 3 road games in a row or home games in a row. When you can get a day, you take advantage of that day. And we're all gearing up towards what will be, I think, a frantic finish in this league.
So we'll see if that practice time, Derek, may help them today. What does your gut say about an early start? I don't think we've had one this early this season, right? Oh, yeah, we did the first game of the year. Remember a couple of those early season tournaments? Yeah. They played well. That was a lot lesser competition, obviously. But does your gut say they corrected these things in practice and they're going to be ready to play?
I think they would hope so. I don't think they want to see a
nice
Brad
avoiding the question, Derek.
I would expect an inspired effort early.
Okay.
I really think this team was bothered by the Maryland loss. I think the fact that they had to sit for an entire week and kind of let that eat at them. I know Brad mentioned that he had a couple of sleepless nights. I'm sure the message has been, I don't know if you want to deal with Brad Underwood at halftime or one of those huddles if you're not bringing it early on. So, this team, like you said, normally practice 7 a.m. in the morning, so I think they'll be comfortable with that. But I just think you got to bring the physicality early on, because Ohio State, #1 in the league at getting to the free throw line. And also Rutgers, we know that's a physical team. Steve Peichel said that Ohio State's the most physical team that they've played this year. So That's one thing that you got to be able to bring early in the morning, but I think this will be a juiced-up Illinois squad. Can they execute with that energy and intensity? That's going to be a question as well.
Okay, all right, let's start to break down this Ohio State game. In my eyes, it all starts with E.J. Liddell because for his potential and what he can do, and the matchup problem at the 4 for Illinois, if that's the case, which I would expect him. I know he's played some small ball 5 for them as well, but for me, he's so electric and dynamite in what he can do. He hasn't always brought that this season from looking at his numbers. Where do you start scouting this team and kind of breaking it down and where they could potentially hurt Illinois today?
I agree with you. I think it does start with EJ, and they really have him shoulder the burden of having to guard the 5-man. They play him and Kyle Young together. Kyle Young's about 6'8", EJ 6'7", 240. When they're in together, maybe EJ's the 4 on offense, but he really will guard the 5, and he's going to draw the assignment of Kofi Coburn. So I think defensively he's obviously up against it because of the size. Now, EJ's pretty darn strong. He's going to be able to hold his ground for the most part, and very quick leaper, very athletic, can block some shots. So we'll see how that transpires defensively. At the other end of the floor, you got to keep him off the glass because that's really where he makes a lot of his hay is just bullying you on the glass and be able to execute those putbacks. He can score inside. He can hit the 15-footer as far as the mid-range. The three-point shot hasn't really come along like I would have expected at this point in his career. I mean, he obviously has 2-3 more years after this, but I wouldn't be too worried if he wants to extend out to the perimeter and take one of those threes. He does take them. He just doesn't make them at a high clip. Dwayne Washington at the point guard spot for Ohio State is really a key for them as well, averaging about 16, 17 a game in Big Ten play. And over the last 3 contests for him, shooting about 46% from 3. So he is a high-volume scorer. He's going to get his clips up for sure. Trent Frazier, who looks healthy as far as we can tell, and I know Brad said that he's good to go, is going to draw that assignment. I think you really got to make sure that he doesn't get any good looks early on, and you definitely don't want to go under his screens and allow him to step back and pop.
Ohio State's missed a couple of guys the last few games, especially C.J. Walker. How do they come back and battle that today? It looks like at least C.J.'s out on the floor right now.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one for them because you like that depth, of course, at the point guard position, and CJ's got a lot of experience and someone that can score it as well. So looks like he's probably going to be out. He's got the wrap on his hand, and they also are missing another starter in Jimmy Sotos, who he's a 2-guard that they've now slotted in, Justin Beherns, and he's a really good shooter. He shoots about 52% from 3, and that's really all he does offensively. He's taken 1 2-point attempt the entire year. So some injuries for Ohio State, but they still obviously have enough to be a challenge here today, and they do have front court depth. That is one thing that they do have at their disposal. You mentioned Zed Key earlier, EJ Liddell, Kyle Young. Maybe don't have the size to go against Kofi, but they do have some different guys they're going to throw at him.
All right, so CJ was out here a little earlier, Derek. I was looking here. I don't see him right now. Do you?
I don't know.
No, I don't
saw
see
him going through a little bit of light shooting, and I think that was just maybe a little workout for him.
Okay.
I actually see him standing over on the sideline there. It looks like Jimmy Sotos with him. So those two guys who both have logged some starts are not going to be in the lineup today.
All right, so we made that. We got CJ and Jimmy over there. Those guys aren't going to play. It'll be a couple straight games for them. You would expect Illinois is probably scouted that at this point. Wouldn't expect to see them. But if it starts with Dwayne and EJ, my question for EJ is if he does step out and shoot a 15-footer, how does Kofi respond to that? And do they guard defensively with Kofi on EJ?
I think they will. I do think that there's going to be some opportunities for Georgie to come in and play some 4. And I think that's something you could look at as far as a bigger lineup. And maybe Georgie's a better answer for EJ if that is something that's going for him, as far as if he has a 15-footer that goes down and he's facing up Kofi and that's having success for him. I don't worry too much about Kofi if you're in that 15-foot range. Now, EJ will look to put the ball on the floor, and Kofi's got to be able to be aware of that and move his feet.
And not foul.
Exactly.
Right, with that.
Right. Some of the bigger challenges for Kofi is those pick and pop 5s. Now, if EJ wants to take a couple of those, the numbers say that you can live with that. So I think Kofi will be okay as far as the 15-foot, get out, contest. Don't leave your feet, because that's a big thing that Kofi has done at times. It's just getting a little too antsy. Leave his feet. He can go by you or draw a foul. And if Kofi's in foul trouble, all of a sudden this team can hurt you inside with their physicality.
Right. You mentioned Trent as well. He is out here. We saw him. He's been all team hype this morning, which is, I don't know if it's all that unusual for Trent. I haven't seen him take a shot yet. Here he is right here. Maybe get a little zoom in. Look, if he doesn't, and that looks smooth there on a 3, if he just defends, I think he helps this team tremendously. Let some other guys shoot. You know, if it is still bothering him, his left shoulder's padded up a little bit today. How would you feel if he just defended today and focused on that, which is not unlike most other games this year, but especially with the hurt shoulder, if he can just come in and defend?
Yeah, I think that obviously provides a big bonus for you when you look at Ohio State's offense and how much of a high usage player that Dwayne Washington is, and just the fact that if you're able to make him have an inefficient day and really limit his opportunities, then you're going to put yourself in a good position to win the game. I know that Brad worried a little bit after him shooting an airball 3 that he wasn't a threat against Maryland, and maybe they wouldn't guard him. I know that some of his attempts here early have been coming off the hand real nice, and Brad says he's good to go. So, but overall, yeah, if he's defense first, which like you said, that's a lot of his mentality now, especially as an upperclassman. If he does his job there, Illinois should be just fine.
Yeah, especially today on Dwayne Washington. All right, we talked about Andre Carbello a little bit earlier. We saw him out here with Zed Key, his former Lehigh teammates. It's a cool moment for them. It's got to be. They haven't seen each other in a long time here since, you know, normally the guys would go home in the summer. Andre would go back to New York, Long Island, and probably see Zed, maybe even ball with him or hoop in the summer a little bit, you know, for a short time there. But that didn't happen this year with COVID, obviously. Zed's a rotational player for Ohio State, so it's not like they're going to be guarding each other in a sense, but it's kind of cool when you get some high school teammates going against each other.
Yeah, you're bringing that back to this game because we've seen Dimitri McCamey, Evan Turner for a handful of years there, both St. Joe's products. Evan got the best of Illinois during that time.
Just a little bit.
You'd hope that kind of flips the script here. But, yeah, Carbello and Zed Key, very close, both high school and AAU teammates, won a state title together at Lehigh. And Carbello told us that really Zed was one of his first friends when he came over from Puerto Rico. So they're really tight. You saw them getting about 5 minutes of, you know, yucking it up down there before the game. So, yeah, it's a really cool moment to see. And Zed has come on lately for them. And I know he's only playing about 13 minutes a game, but he's a very good scorer inside, has a nice thick body, as you would say, and very good touch. So a lot of what you're seeing with Kofi and Georgie benefiting from Carbello off of some of those dimes, Zed did a lot of that in high school, and he was a guy that Illinois wanted quite a bit.
Here's Andre on Zed and their relationship.
I think it's going to be great to see him. Hopefully we can chat a little bit, at least, you know, quick, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever it is. I definitely appreciate that. And, you know, he's like a brother to me. I have a lot of love for him. I'm really proud of him. But, you know, I'm pretty sure he knows that too. Like once we step on the court and the ref throws that ball up, he's an enemy to me. So a lot of love for him, but, you know, we're going to go out there and compete. I think it will be bad if we don't compete because that's what the game asks. You know, the game is always asking for, you know, to the players.
All right, that is Andre Carbello on Zed Key, former Lehigh teammates, and you mentioned AAU teammates as well. How interested was Illinois in bringing him here?
For sure, they were pretty interested.
Okay.
They had offered and really saw a ton of his games, obviously, when they were prioritizing Carbello at a high level. But, yeah, I think that they would have taken him. He was one of their options. It's kind of a four-man. Coleman Hawkins in that mix as well. And I think he was a significant priority for them. Ultimately, he cut them from this list, and he chooses Ohio State, ends up in the Big Ten. But they would have loved to have him as a guy that they could add in that front court rotation. And, again, rebounder, good touch around the rim, and yeah, he's definitely a Big Ten player with his physicality.
Okay, good. We'll see him develop at Ohio State. Probably a multi-year guy there, certainly, and we'll see him coming up here. Illinois getting ready to break out the huddle here. Today, we got 34 and a half minutes until game time. This is a nationally televised game. It's on Fox. Haven't been, there's been a few, but maybe not a ton of nationally televised games. We're going to get that national audience here today. Let's start with Carbello, though, as we kind of further along here. He took 12 shots against Maryland. I think that was a career high for him, if I remember right. What's that balance for him in terms of defenses forcing him to shoot? I feel like that's a good game plan for an opponent here. If you can get him to shoot, you're probably going to like your chances against Illinois.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I think some of the quality of shots factors in there because they're not afraid of him being able to put a couple up there, but his number one talent is not jump shooting, obviously.
Yeah. He's leading the Big Ten in assists for a reason.
Right.
Not shooting.
Absolutely. And Maryland was able to defend him well enough to where they didn't have to send help off of him. They didn't help off of the bigs, and they knew that what he wants to do is get as deep as he can on the drive, dump that off to Kofi, dump that out to Georgie, or if the help slides from the corners, he's going to kick that out for three. So turning him into a scorer, like you said, is a decent game plan right now. I think that you saw earlier working with Chin Coleman on if the guard goes under the screen, being able to stop and pop from three. We'll see if he has those opportunities and makes a couple. But again, I think you're looking maybe 6-7 field goal attempts. 12's too high. But again, if he's able to get to the rim, especially in transition, you want him to be able to finish. But yeah, Maryland really scouted him well and was able to do that. And we'll see here today. I think a lot of Big Ten teams will try to take a page out of that game plan.
As Illinois works its way through this January schedule, Derek, we had pinned early on in January here as a time where Illinois could get some quality wins. Also a portion of the schedule where you felt like it was gettable. Now as we move forward here into the late January and early February, it's kind of put up or shut up time as teams start to separate from the Big Ten. And Michigan, my goodness, really proved this week against Wisconsin that they're the real deal. I had questions about their schedule. They didn't play a high major team in their non-conference schedule. And then they come into the Big Ten, really didn't play a difficult, you could say, on paper, Big Ten schedule early on. But that Wisconsin win really was impressive to win by that 20-plus points. If Illinois wants to be a contender here, I feel like this is the start of a time where they've really got to show us what they're made of.
Absolutely. You look at Michigan, and they're on the road in Minneapolis today. If you're an Illinois fan, you're pulling for the Gophers and hoping that they make it tough for Michigan on the road and finally give them one of those losses. Iowa's still a one-loss team in the league, and we've talked about a favorable stretch. Ohio State's a ranked team. It's not going to be easy. Penn State comes in here, you should win that game. But after that, you're playing at Michigan State. You got Iowa in his building in less than 2 weeks. So it's really starting to come along here. And if you're going to go 5-3, you're really dropping out of that top tier in the league. And how much can you really think about a Big Ten title after that? It would really get tough. So win this game. You're 6-2, still very much in the mix. Going to play some of those contenders here down the road. And if you want to have those kind of goals, you got to be able to take care of business on your home floor against a team like this.
Wisconsin's back up in that mix again after winning last night. They beat Rutgers last night. Rutgers now 3-5, I believe.
Yeah,
in the league.
5 of their last 6.
I mean, that's how quick some things can turn here. Well, just as stacked and loaded as this Big Ten is, and so, I think for Illinois to continue to be in that title chase, today would be a great start for Illinois to do that. All right, we've talked about Kofi. One guy you mentioned not on the floor is Jermaine Hamlin. Don't see him at all today. That's some newsworthy elements today. Hasn't played a lot this season. Certainly more of a practice player for the Illini, but he's not here.
He's not, no. I don't have any breaking news or any explanation why, but it's very interesting. We'll have to ask Bret after the game about that one.
Yeah. Like I said, it doesn't really hurt the rotation today, but just an observation that Derek had made earlier on that there was no Jermaine Hamlin today, the Lincoln product.
Brad says he has a surprise or something that he knows that we don't know. And
yeah, I thought that was quite funny yesterday. I was cracking up. In the conversation, just to give you a little context here, before we got on the Zoom, Brad was talking with Derek Burson, who's the sports information director for this basketball program, and he had a big smile on his face and said, I know something you guys don't know. He was asked about it and gave a colorful tweet. You can see that. I think Marley put that out on her Twitter. I saw Jeremy put that out as well, that video. So what's the surprise, Derek? Do you know?
Everyone's willing to speculate.
That's
I don't know.
Exactly right. I would assume it's a recruiting surprise.
I would imagine. Some people are wondering about transfers. You don't currently have a spot open. I don't want to speculate too much and say that Jermaine's gone or anything like that, but it is something that makes you wonder.
We'll see on some news. I know the one big name that I saw that in the AAU circuit that I really loved was Namari Burnett. And just the short, and believe me, I don't cover recruiting as much as Derek, so don't buy any of my advice here, okay? by any means. Derek, this is why we got Derek here to break it down. But if there was one guy I saw in the 2019 AAU circuit in Indianapolis that I loved, it was Namari Burnett, Chicago native, and he's available. Went to Texas Tech, and now he's transferring. I mean, that kid is electric from what I saw. What was your big takeaway from him and his time, in college, also on the circuit?
McDonald's All-American, like you said, Chicago native, ends up at Texas Tech, and had some freshman inconsistencies, some things that, he's going through some struggles similar to what we see from Adam Miller, a guy that's a really talented shot maker that went through some tough stretches. I think that he played a little too sped up at times. I think maybe some of the issues of shots not going in maybe got in his head a little bit. I think it's natural to press then, and he was not starting, and his minutes were starting to decline. So he's on the market now after only 12 games at Texas Tech. I think the fit here would make a lot of sense, especially with Io leaving. Namari and Adam Miller have experience playing together in the Mac Urban Fire program before Namari moved out to California and went to Prolific Prep, where he teamed up with Coleman Hawkins. So some things to like there. Illinois in the mix. They've made contact. It's just, again, got to have a spot. And if they do, I think that there's a decent sell for them.
Did they win a state title as a freshman?
Yes.
How much was Namari on that team at Morgan Park? I mean, was he a factor? I can't remember that game. I'm sure we were at it, but I just can't remember.
He was on that team. I believe he hit 5 or 6 threes as a freshman in that state title game win, and was able to, play a big role in that freshman year before he transferred out.
Yeah, and then he played with a guy named Jalen Green. You may have heard of him. Prolific
exactly,
Prep.
right.
Pretty good. That team was loaded. They were in Champaign last year. Remember that? That was fun.
That was a show.
That was quite a show there at Centennial. All right, we're counting down here. Just a couple of minutes left on the Illini Nation pregame show. Derek, time for a pick. How are you feeling today? What'd you pick on the site? And does Illinois come out with the win?
I think they do.
Okay.
I think they ultimately do. I think that Kofi's too much for them inside. I think that Illinois is obviously going to have to bring it with the intensity, with the toughness, and I think they will. I think they'll be ready to play. I think this is a show-me spot, as we kind of talked about, nationally televised, playing a ranked team, and here's a big stretch for them to kind of stay at the top of that league. So I have 79-70 Illinois, and I think Trent guarding Dwayne Washington, now that Trent, we know that he's healthy, he's going to go, is a big deal for Illinois. So I think they get it done ultimately, and that's where I'm at.
All right, I'm going to say a little lower scoring. We've been kind of a little contrast here. I think we're similar on our picks this year. I have to go back and add them all up here. I think Illinois does get the win today. I think it's going to be a little lower, so I'm going to say 74-68. I think Illinois is going to be right at that Vegas line for entertainment purposes only, of course, where I think they're 6.5-point favorites today. So I think it's going to be close. I think Illinois will come out and get some things corrected. I think that week off maybe did help them. And you would want to play another game and get back on the court, but maybe some practices with Brad Underwood was exactly what they needed. So for Derek, I'm Bret. Check out the site. I know you did a couple features this week, and the new addition, Joey Wagner, as well, our good buddy, added to the Illini Inquirer 24/7 team. So real quick here, what do you guys got on the site?
Yeah, we've got you covered for sure. I've did a story on Carbello and Zed Key, and Jeremy talking about just kind of the fixing the inconsistencies, getting back to playing at their peak and everything. Joey's done a great job, had some football stories as well. I mean, there's football hires every day. I mean,
it's been newsworthy, right?
Yeah, haven't filled the staff yet, but it's been great. So pregame stuff, we'll have postgame as well, and check us out for sure.
All right, that's Derek Piper from Illini Inquirer. Thanks to him as always. We'll have plenty of our coverage after the game as well. Check back here right on these same digital channels to watch the post-game press conference. Then the news tonight at 6 and 10. I'll have a post-game report with highlights as well. For Derek, I'm Bret. Thanks so much for watching the Your Illini Nation pregame show. Enjoy Illinois, Ohio State at the top of the hour on Fox.